Hi, I'm Robert Dickey, Professor Robert Dickey at Gaiman University, and this is a session in the course EPA2, English for Public Administration 2, also called 행정영어. And this course focuses on discussions. Today's session is a replacement class for a class that should take place during what's known as the Chuseok season, Korea's autumn festival season, which some people call Korea's Thanksgiving. In today's session, we're going to talk about our previous mini lectures, and we'll have a lecture in this class to learn the basics of research. I should point out that in terms of research, there are going to be two later mini lectures, and these focus more on statistical approaches. But because I'm encouraging students to do a survey of their family or their friends during this 5-day weekend Chuseok holiday, I wanted to be sure to get this introduction to research available to students, in particular to talk about statistical methods or at least data collection in terms of surveys. So first, let's review our previous mini lectures. We talked about brainstorming, T-charts, 5 types of talk, BICS and CULP, and language and content. And I've just got very quick images or notes here about these. Remember, with brainstorming, we're trying to collect as many ideas as possible. So a brainstorming process is fast. We're working as fast as possible. We're trying to build up that energy like an electrical storm up in the sky. It's fast, and there's no judging, because if we judge, then we start to reduce the number of ideas coming out. Instead, every idea is going to be a good idea. Every idea, even if it feels dumb, might encourage or create another idea, which is really fantastic. So we don't judge, we just put them out there. Generally, in brainstorming, we have a time limit. We say, we're going to do this for 5 minutes. We're going to do this for 10 minutes. That way we have people going to spend all their energy because they know it's going to end. Now, there is another kind of brainstorming where people will put Post-its on the wall or something, and they'll say, this brainstorming is on the wall and it takes a week. It's a little bit different type. But for our class, we're focusing on that fast and furious, real quick brainstorming. Be sure to write everything down or you'll forget it. Remember, because there's no judging, we can sort it all later. Just get something down. Then you can look at it and go, oh yeah, we were talking about that. So, once again, I emphasize, in brainstorming, every idea is a good idea. No judging, no filtering. Just get it out there. That's brainstorming. Okay, T-charts. T-charts are very simple. It looks like a T. You can see the image on this display here. We talk about our pro and our con. We'll be sure to put the issue on the top. Be sure to summarize in very, very short form the issue next to the pro statement. And then we write our ideas, pro and con. Pro means, oh yeah, I like it. And con is everything that's not pro. The third thing we talked about is 5 types of talk. 5 different ways that people could communicate around this idea of conversation. Discussion, speech, debate, chat, and Q&A. Each has certain features that are kind of opposite another feature. So speech typically means long terms. You talk a long time. Q&A typically means one person is asking the questions and one person is answering. There's a power imbalance. Chat is very, very, very short terms. We're not very, very short turns. My turn, your turn. We are not balancing. We're not enriching comments. We're just talking really fast. And the topics can change back and forth so fast, so easy. Debate typically has very strict rules about who can talk, when they can talk, what they can talk about, their sides. And discussion is kind of softer than debate. It allows more flexibility, but still it has a focused topic, unlike conversations which can move around. So that's our 5 types of talk. BICS and CULP, we talked about. BICS is basic interpersonal communicative skills. It's kind of closer to what we could call taxi driver language, where the language is relatively simple and the thing we're talking about is not too complex. CULP, cognitive academic language processing, is where our language is generally more developed, more complicated, and the things we talk about are more complex. The last thing on this review is language and content. Here the focus is our concern about a balance in a way that we don't overburden our brain. We're talking about cognitive load or cognitive processing or processing load. That if we're going to be thinking about something that's more complex, we may need to simplify our language. If we're talking about something in a way, or we're talking about simpler things, maybe we push our language to a more complex area so that we are maximizing our brain. Okay? Ideal cognitive load. I'm working hard and I'm feeling good. Like when I'm weightlifting, the first 10 or whatever doesn't really help me, but then I start to get tired, and it's a good kind of tired, and I keep working. Okay, so the ideal cognitive load is when we're really close to maximizing our brain capabilities. We're working hard. But we cannot do hard language and hard content at the same time. Our brain will explode. Our computer will die. And if the language and content are really simple, then we'll probably get bored. Last comment on language and content, every person will be different. Some people can handle more difficult language and more difficult content at the same time. Some people are better in language. So what person A thinks is very challenging and difficult language, person B might think, oh, that's not too difficult. And the reverse is true. We might be talking about something that's very easy. The concept is easy for one person. Oh, you took Professor Lee's class on governance and you understand governance very well. But this other person doesn't understand governance very well. So the topic could be very challenging. The content could be hard. So every person's different. It's a kind of a theoretical idea that we need to try to balance. So in this class, some days we'll have harder topics. And I'll expect less language and less perfect discussion, presentation. And in other days, the topic will be easier, and I'll be expecting more language and more perfect discussion techniques. Okay, so that's a review of that. I forgot to set my clock. Darn. Okay, we'll keep going. That brings us into our mini lecture for today. The mini lecture is Introduction to Research. The materials we will use for this recorded lecture are on the CTL. They're on the e-board. It is the one post, the one page that I'm going to point to in just a second, and the two attachments to that page. I have one little addition to that because we're doing this today to hope that you will start a survey project during Chuseok. The one little point is your survey needs to have at least 10 respondents. 20 is better. 50 is kind of crazy. It's too hard probably. I mean, later in the semester, you could do a survey using an online tool. But for Chuseok, 50 would be too hard. And I don't care. You don't have to do your survey during Chuseok. I'm just giving you the chance to do that if you want. So you need at least 10 or more people answering your survey. And you need at least 2, and more than 2 is better, data points. That means, what are you asking? What information are you collecting? You need at least one focal question. That is the point. Why are you asking this? Do you smoke? Could be a focal question. Yes, no, pretty easy. You could say, how many cigarettes do you smoke in a day or in a week? And some people will say 0. Okay? But that is your focal question. You could ask 2 or 3 questions. Do you smoke? How much do you smoke? What kind of cigarette? What brand of cigarette do you smoke? You can ask more than one, I don't care. But for our class, you need to ask at least one focal question. And you need to ask at least one demographic question. Demographic means describing the person who answers. Example, male or female? How old? Are they Korean citizens? Do they have a job? Whatever kinds of questions you could ask about that person that can help describe the answer. That way we could come up with something like, most men smoke, most women don't. Young men smoke more than old men. That would be the kind of answer we would get from our survey. If you only ask one focal question and one demographic, I'm going to want to see like 20 people that you surveyed because you did so little. Because this is a class and I want to see you do some work. If you ask 3 or 4 questions and you use those questions when you make your report, reporting is later, don't worry. But if you use 3 or 4 questions, then you could use fewer people. But please don't ask 37 questions. You're not a professional, and I don't want you to spend 80 hours on a report. Your whole project should maybe take you 2 hours for a mini project. Just 2 hours. All right, so that is kind of the introduction of where you might be at the end of Chuseok. You might do a survey with at least 10 people and 2 or more data points, 2 or more questions. All right? I mean, if it's male or female, you don't have to ask. You could just go, oh, he's male. Oh, she's female. Right? You don't have to ask it. But it's a data point. You write it down. Is it a male? Is it a female? What's the answer? Are they less than 20? Between 20 and 30? Between 30 and 40? 40 and 50? More than 50? Something like that would be a demographic. Age. All right. So let's jump in to the web page, CTL page. Here we are. And we can see that there is a note near the top that says Chuseok Research. That's just a reminder. that I hope you'll consider doing research. Mentions this recording. Remember, you should watch this recording, finish it, don't stop early, you have to do the whole thing before September 30th. Okay, that's easy. Back. I need to find something, but that's all right. Now I've got a few more topics up here. You can see the topic for, it's either Monday or Tuesday, depending if you are day student or night student. The topic number 4, which is chapel. That's all it says. You'll have to look to see what chapel's about. And the second mini lecture is up about average, about how do we calculate average if we're doing numbers. And that focuses more on the kind of statistics you would get from a bigger database, bigger number database. But you could certainly use that kind of information in your survey. And then we can see topic number 3, which we have coming up. I'm recording this on Tuesday, September 14th. So September 15 for my night class, September 16 for my day class is topic number 3, which is the game shutdown law in Korea, that children can't watch games. That's fine. All right. So we're coming down. It says mini lecture, introduction. That's introduction to research. By the way, next class, we haven't recorded it, we haven't been there yet. We'll do the mini lecture on Think, Know, Believe. So that's not in this recording. Maybe I'll mention it really quickly at the end. All right. Mini lecture, introduction to research. So on this page, there are 2 attachments: research concepts and research methods. And I've already downloaded those, so I don't need to do anything. Hold on just a second, I want to test something. Okay, just to see my clock. We're at about 18 minutes. Good. Okay, so mini lecture, introduction to research. As I've said before, in my class, you need to do 2 research activities if you want an A or an A+ grade, because each activity is worth 5 points. If you don't do both, you lose 10 points, you lose your A. Here's my key point. Every semester, every time I teach this class, some student does a wonderful job in class. They keep good notebooks, but they don't get research points. Maybe they didn't do the research, or maybe they didn't do the research the way I said, and they didn't check with me. Just the end of the semester, they give me their research, and they get 0 points. And they lose their A. Please don't do that. Please give me your research early so I can help you. I can tell you this is good, this needs some work, this is not okay. Right now you have 3 points. If you just stop, it's 3 points. Or right now, it's 0 points. Remember, the grade is 5, 4, 3, and none. There's no 2 point, no 1 point. No, I'm sorry. The deadline is the deadline. So, better if you start early. For your research projects, they could be connected to an issue statement we work in class. That means you could use the results from your study in your T-chart, even before you finish your research. Now, this is very early days and we haven't talked about future topics. So don't worry about it. You can do a survey quite easily. For one of your two research projects, you must work with published statistics. You have to use data that is available. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to use exact numbers that they use. You could create statistics from some other published data. Let me give you an example. How many Uri Bank, how many Uri Bank are there in Daegu? I don't know. But if you go to the Uri Bank website, you can look up every branch. Sometimes they have a table with everything. Sometimes you have to look up and say, what gu or what dong. They have a sorting. But you could take that information from that website and just write it down. And then that would be a kind of published statistics. Okay? That would be a kind of published statistics. So the statistics don't have to be in a table for you. So for another example, we could talk about cities in Gyeongsangbuk-do. In one of my later lectures, I will show you a data set that I downloaded from the Gyeongsangbuk-do Docheong, the provincial office of Gyeongsangbuk-do, and use that data. How big is a city? How much space it has? How many square kilometers? How many people it has? We could use that data. Now, here's a key point. If you are using someone else's data, you have to use it differently. Don't give me their report. So if you just show me 10 cities in Gyeongsangbuk-do, which one is bigger, which one is smaller, from the Gyeongsangbuk-do Docheong data set, that's not research. Okay? I can find that. No, you have to do something with the data. And the next lecture we'll talk about how you can do things. All right? So either you have to create data, like a survey, or you have to shuffle the data, move the data in different ways. All right. For the other of your two research projects, you must do a survey. And this one says at least 12 people. That's an old report. 10 is okay. This is an old page. Don't worry about doing the research. There's more information. This time we're talking about a survey to collect the information. Then we'll play with it. So if you're visiting your family or friends for Chuseok, that might be a good time to collect information. If you're doing a survey, you need to collect at least 2 data points. 3 data points is better. You should survey at least 10 people. 20 people would be better. Data points could be age, gender, male or female, a specific question, okay? So I'm giving to you again what I said about 8 minutes ago. All right, so let's look at this question of data. First of all, we collect data. For example, survey. We ask, how old are you? Are you a boy or a girl? How much do you smoke? And that's just collected. It's just a pile, like these blocks. Now we can sort the data. We'll put the black one here, the yellow one here, the green one here, the white one here. And that's not bad, but it doesn't tell us a whole lot. Maybe we arrange the data, try to make some kind of sorting, more than just a pile, but something else. We can present the data visually. You can see things are taller or shorter. Again, I don't know if this is a great idea. It's just a picture I stole. And finally, it says we can present our data. We can explain things with a story. Those same blocks, we build a story. It's just a nice little picture. It's not very important. I'm not going to test you on this. Okay, So let's take a look at the two attached documents. The first one is research, a general introduction to research. Now there are many ways to explain and divide and sort and arrange the idea of research. And I give you two here. Remember, I already mentioned the idea of survey and some other kind of statistics, some kind of created statistics. Here's a different way to look at it. Okay, so in Korean, they often use the word josa and 연구. And this is one way we can divide it, but actually it's not very clear in English. Because the word survey in English has two different meanings, two different ideas. So that makes things a little bit harder. First, the meaning of survey is to collect information from people. And you know that, right? You have answered surveys by telephone, by email, maybe in Kakao, on a website. Your friends have asked you questions. You're going to ask questions. We're collecting information from people. And that's a survey. The other meaning of survey is to mark out the territory, to decide what belongs where. So, for example, in a new country, when America was young, when Australia was young, people would go out and see a big field or a big valley, and they would mark it and say, this is part A, this is part B, part C, part D. Now we're going to sell it. Who wants to buy part A? No, that's not part B, it's only part A. So we draw lines. And still, on campus now, you can find students in the engineering department who are walking around with this tripod, this three-legged stand and a little camera. And somebody else goes down the road and holds up a stick, and they're measuring and marking and deciding what's the line. They are surveying the ground. Okay, they are marking out territory, area on the ground. But in the same way, we use the word survey to talk about sorting out or identifying and marking what's what for literature, for scholarly work. If you write a master's degree thesis, 석사 논문, part of your work is to do a literature study that says, tell me about the famous writings in this subject, and who thinks this way and who thinks that way. Who thinks something more like this and who thinks something more like that. So we have to kind of divide this many articles into different ideas or philosophies. So they're marking out the literature of the field. We're writing about what other people wrote. We're marking out territory. We are surveying the literature. And in the same way, a survey could be simply taking all the existing knowledge, even if it's not professor's knowledge, scholarly knowledge, sorting it out and organizing it. And that's kind of the arranging data in that picture we saw earlier. Once you have done part A or B, then you have to do part C, which is compile. Now pull all your information together and report it. Present it. Let other people know what it is you've learned. And in our class, that report is a 2-page or maybe 3-page if you have a really pretty document. report. You don't have to read it in class. It's the kind of thing that you might give your boss at work. Okay? Not too many words. It's not an English test, but I hope that you write good English because it's very short. And actually, it might be less than one page of writing. Because you'll have some tables or some graphs, a pie chart, a line chart, to help explain what you learned. So that's type 1. Survey, 조사. Part 2 in this description, maybe we call it 연구 or 연수, it's kind of confusing, is what we could call original research. Maybe you think of it as laboratory research. It's creating new knowledge. It's not collecting information from other people, it's doing something different. For example, in a laboratory, what happens if I mix this chemical and this chemical? Boom, it explodes. What happens if I mix this chemical and this chemical? Looks okay. Inject it into me and suddenly I'm Butterfly Man. Not Spider-Man, I'm Butterfly Man. So in a laboratory we create new data. Or, similar to survey, we take the data from other people, or maybe from your survey, and then treat it differently. Do something different so that it creates new information. So we have this thought, one man's information is another man's data. What's the difference between data and information? Data by itself is not very meaningful, not very useful. We have to do something with the data to get information. And then the information is useful. So let's take an example. In my class, I have 20 students, and 11 are women and 9 are men. So I have 20 pieces of data. Male, 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 9. Female, 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 11. 9 pieces of data, 11 pieces of data. Male, 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 female, female. Put it together, I have 20. That's still data. 55% of my students are female. Ta-da! That's information. But wait, I have 55% in my class, but James has 45% in his class. My 55% is only data if somebody is collecting it. Okay, Dickie has 55%, James has 45%. 55 and 45 is 100%? Oh, no, 50-50, right? Well, maybe. What if I have 20 students, but James has 40 students? So if you take my information and you take his information, just the top level, somebody else could use it as data, 55 and 45. But that's dangerous because maybe James's class is double the size of mine. Sometimes it works. We can use his information, his information, his information, use it as my data. Other times we can't. So one man's information is another man's data, sometimes. So I can work in the laboratory or I can use existing data. And then part C is the same. Report. Compile the data if I need to, and report. We're creating new knowledge. All right. So one of your reports in my class should be a survey, and one of the reports in my class should be creating new knowledge. If there's a reason why you don't want to do one of each, talk to me. I'll listen to you. But basically, I really, really, really want you to do at least one statistical, data collection set. If you are doing a large survey, more than 20 people, then that might satisfy the requirement. But one of them should be more numbers. This is not a math class. I'm not testing you on math. All right? But in a later mini lecture, I will give you some information to help you play with math easily. Okay, note, the focus for this survey and this research project is about what you do with the data, how you present it in a little report. I don't care if your data is new or if you use data from 1960. It's not important to me. Okay? But some kind of data that you play with. Show me that you understand the basics. Why? Because when you do discussions, you work with data. You're going to talk about data. And maybe you're going to criticize somebody's data for being not good. Or their information, the report from the data, is not good. Public administration as a science is filled with reports. We hire consultants. We tell city staff, do a report. And then other people criticize the report. So we're going to have a little experience. All right. Finally, if I take the published information on city size and population for Gyeongsangbuk-do, I can find averages. And then I can share that information. Maybe choosing one city that's most average. That data already exists. I didn't really do anything new. That's probably a survey or a report. It's not a surveying people, but it's still that idea of surveying the field, surveying literature. It's not really creating new knowledge. But if I compare information from different sources, for example, school rankings from the Joseon Ilbo and school rankings from the Korean government, two different systems, maybe that's new research. Or if I take the city size and city population for Gyeongsangbuk-do and I mix it with the number of McDonald's in Gyeongsangbuk-do, maybe I will find out that Gumi has 3 McDonald's and Andong has 5. Is that something we can look at based on, because population is bigger, there's more McDonald's? Because the ground size is bigger, there are more McDonald's? We could look at that. That would be new knowledge. Except one of my students already did that. But that's the concept. All right, so that's concept research number 1. Now we are at just about 40 minutes. I'm only going to take about 5 or 8 minutes on this next file, which is actually longer, but you can read, so I don't have to. The scientific method. No, you're not scientists. No, you don't have to be scientists. What I want to point out here is that every middle school child in America has to learn this. Okay, maybe they don't learn it well, but it's taught. It's part of their studies. The scientific method. So, my page's not working quite right. There we go. You're required to conduct 2 research projects. You should be able to conduct each project in roughly 1 to 2 hours. If you are doing a survey, of course, you're going to take some time to do the survey. The report writing should take about an hour. If you're doing something more complex, it'll take more time. I say if you work fast and well, you can do your research in an hour. How long does it take to report? Well, partly that depends how good is your language. Now, we're not talking about survey existing information right now. Right now, for the next 8 minutes, we're talking about creating new knowledge. Because if you're surveying the field, you're not following a scientific method. Scientific method is what made the modern world. Before that, people kind of guessed. The chart on this table is from one website. It's cute, simple, it's easy. The text comes from several other websites. But all of this information is basic from middle school science books in America. Okay? It's not complex. So let's look at the chart. The chart starts off with ask a question, the red circle at the top. Do boys smoke more than girls? Simple question. Do background research. What kind of information do I need to know? Well, what is the definition of smoking? What do I mean by girl? Has anybody else talked about this question? Oh, we're going to talk about boys and girls in Korea, but they've done this study in other countries. So we do a little bit of background study. In a proper research project, they might spend weeks and months on background research. For our class, basically, you could talk to somebody and get enough background information. Construct a hypothesis. I believe, I hypothesize that men smoke more than women. Pretty simple. Test with an experiment. Now we could do a survey. Or we could do a laboratory experiment. You can shoot drugs in you. And after we do the experiment, we analyze the results. What happened? And then we have a false hypothesis or only partially true hypothesis. Probably, in this case, we would say it's false. Our study failed. Try again. If when we analyze results, the hypothesis is true, then we would report the results and maybe many people are interested. It's possible when your hypothesis is false, you still report. But the truth is, most people don't care. Your professors at school have to do research, and they have to publish in journals. But if they do a study and they find out the hypothesis is wrong, probably they can't publish it and they wasted all their time. So they will work really hard to find some way to find something true. Maybe they write 6 different hypotheses off of this study, hoping one of them will be true. Okay? So that is the image, that's the general construct. Let's look at the text very fast. Scientific method, choose your topic. Okay? I wrote, in this class, your topic should match one of our discussions. That just saves you some work. In a couple of weeks, we'll do brainstormings and we'll find lots of topics for the future. Number 2, state the problem. Usually that's a question. In our class, writing an issue statement is probably the easiest way to state the problem. You could write a hypothesis. Do boys smoke more than girls? Review the topic. Okay. Write down the arguments and facts. Do some background research. You know, for a class, you're supposed to prepare for 15 minutes for this project. Well, if it's a subject that you already know, maybe 15 minutes is enough. Just do a T-chart. But if you're going to experiment in something that's not in your know-how, then you're going to have to spend more time. Then hypothesize a possible solution, a rule. Every time I kick a boy in his private parts, he will cry. Let's test it. Let's go kick 20 boys in his private parts. Let's see if every boy cries. Oh, only 18 cried. Hypothesis failed. Unfortunately, 4 boys beat me, and so it was a very painful study. Okay? There's reading here about how to write a hypothesis. You do not have to write a hypothesis in my class. This is middle school science education. Experiment. Test your hypothesis. Analyze the data. This is often statistics. It says, remember, mean, median, mode, but we haven't talked about that yet. And then conclusions. What did you learn? How do you report it? Now, here's the fast example. I'm going to do a science project in middle school about tomatoes and light. Light. I'm going to use different kinds of light to grow tomatoes. So I'm going to make a basic hypothesis, which is tomatoes grow faster in natural sunlight than in artificial lights, fake lights, not sunshine. Now, by the way, most of you guys eat fruit from greenhouses. Greenhouses might have sunlight, might have artificial light, might have both. Now, in the classic scientific method, we have a null hypothesis, which is basically opposite. So if hypothesis is tomatoes grow faster in sunshine, then the null hypothesis is no, tomatoes do not grow faster. Don't worry about that. We're not going to care about that. Then we have these alternative hypotheses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tomatoes grow faster in sunshine than in clear incandescent light. Incandescent light is the old style light you screw in. It's got a little kind of a wire that you see, one little wire. And tomatoes grow faster in sunshine than white incandescent lights. That's the same kind of light bulb, but it's painted kind of white, so it gives a more white color. Tomatoes grow faster in sunshine than frosted incandescent, than fluorescent lights. Number 3, clear fluorescent light. Fluorescent light are the long tubes you have in a classroom. Number 4, than in frosted fluorescent lights. Instead of clear ones, they're painted white. And then we could have these outdoor lights, such as you see when you go to a restaurant at night. Tomatoes grow faster in sunshine than yellow outdoor lights. Tomatoes grow faster in sunshine than in green outdoor lights. So I have 6 different conditions, right? Actually, 7. The original is sunshine. And then clear incandescent, frosted incandescent, clear fluorescent, frosted fluorescent. I can't talk today. Yellow outdoor lights and green outdoor lights. Now, the problem is that we can't always prove that the hypothesis is true. I can't say every time I throw a rock on the water, it will sink. It would mean I have to throw every rock in the world into water. If we say rocks sink in water, we'd have to test it every time. And my arm is not strong enough. I can't throw too many rocks. But the null could be possible. We could say there are no rocks thrown that didn't sink. I only threw 50 rocks. So we can work things around. Sometimes true hypothesis is difficult to prove. But a null hypothesis is designed to be easier to prove. Don't need that, don't use it. Okay? 6 different kinds of lights. For our class, you should probably consider using existing data because a science project like growing tomatoes takes at least 3 weeks. And if somebody messes up your experiment, the dog digs up your tomatoes, then your experiment failed. So it's much safer to use existing data. Use existing data, study it in a new way. In a survey, if you need to ask enough questions to provide answers to each of your alternative hypotheses, if you are doing alternative hypotheses. But for my class, you don't have to. If you want to do a survey to do the quantitative study, right, where you're using lots of statistics or lots of numbers, then you're going to have to ask more questions and you're going to have more respondents. For example, 5 questions and 25 respondents, if you only want to do survey. But I suggest not. Just do one simple survey and then do one simple statistics. Consider this. Problems with young drinkers is the topic. The question or the issue is many problems with young people drinking, so should we change minimum drinking age to alcohol to 25 years? Make a T-chart, make a hypothesis. I'm not going to read this more. You can study this yourself. It's just an example. All right, so we're back to this page. We've finished this page. We go back to the PowerPoint display. Reminder, survey needs at least 10 respondents, at least 2 data points. But really, if only 10 respondents, you should ask for 3 data points. At least 1 focal question and 1 or more demographics. And that is the replacement class for the Chuseok season. For the Thursday day class of EPA, we will not have a class meeting on September 23rd. It's a scheduled class, but we do this video. For the night class, this is replacing the class that was scheduled to be Wednesday, September 22nd, which is a legal holiday, which was pushed back to December 16 or something like that. But again, you have to watch this video by September 30th or you'll be marked absent. That's all for today. Don't be shy to ask questions about this lecture when we come back to the classroom. Thank you very much. Take care. Good luck. Do good research. Bye-bye.